You are Judas, and before you become synonymous with betrayal, you're just a man walking through land crushed by foreign boots and broken promises. The air in Jerusalem always feels heavy: dust, incense, fear. In the streets, everyone speaks softly when they see a Roman soldier. It's not respect, it's instinct. You live among people who don't have the luxury of philosophizing. Here, hope isn't a pretty prayer, it's a rare coin, and when it appears, everyone wants to grab it with both hands, because they know it disappears quickly. That's why you're joining his group. Jesus doesn't arrive like a general, he doesn't bring a sword, he brings the word. And yet, when he speaks, the crowd changes its posture. You've seen hardened men soften. You've seen the sick crawl just to touch the edge of what he represents. You've seen the kind of thing that makes the heart beat with anger and faith at the same time. And you think, and now? You think this is the beginning of the end of Rome, the beginning of the kingdom, the turning point your people have waited for their whole lives. You don't want personal glory. You want a world that doesn't humiliate its people on the street corner. You want dignity. You want the ground to stop shaking under orders and taxes. But the universe has a cruel way of collecting on dreams. The more his name grows, the tighter the city clenches like a fist. The temple leaders become tense. The Romans are on high alert. The crowd becomes like gunpowder. And you, in the midst of it all, realize a truth that no one wants to say aloud. There is no miracle that can prevent politics from shedding blood. You start noticing small signs that become big in your head. Conversations interrupted when you arrive, gazes that linger half a second longer. The kind of silence that isn't peace, it's calculation. You also see the other side. The group is poor, tired, human. You sleep wherever you can. You eat whatever is available. You depend on ordinary people, on donations, on goodwill. And in the midst of all this, you become the guy who holds the bag, the guy with the coins, the guy who counts. It's funny how this changes your worldview, because when you count, you see limits. When you see limits, you begin to fear what happens when the limit is reached, and you feel it's approaching. Jesus speaks of loving your enemies. You listen. But inside, a part of you screams, love doesn't bring down empires. Jesus speaks of turning the other cheek. You hear him. But inside, a part of you calculates, the other side doesn't pay taxes, doesn't buy bread, doesn't protect children. And then comes the week that feels different. Jerusalem is packed. A celebration. Pilgrims, double the number of soldiers. Any spark turns into a massacre. You feel it in your skin. You feel it in the way the Romans hold their spears. You feel it in the way people hug their children tightly. And then Jesus enters. He doesn't hide. He deals with powerful people. He turns the tables. He exposes hypocrisy. He speaks with an authority that seems like pure fire. And that, for you, is beautiful and dangerous, because you see the invisible line being crossed. You see the story narrowing down to a dead end. And the worst part, Jesus seems to accept it, as if he knew the end was coming, and even so, was walking straight towards it. This drives you crazy. You didn't get into this to watch your dream die. You didn't give it all up to be a bystander in a tragedy. You want results. You want victory. You want it to mean something more than just beautiful pain and poetry. And it is in this fissure within you, between faith and frustration, that the poisonous question is born. What if he's wrong about the how? And what if the kingdom doesn't come because no one forces the door? You try to push it away. You try to pray. You try to quiet your mind. But the city won't let you. You walk by and hear whispers, they're going to arrest us. You walk by and feel the gaze. Who are you? You take a breath and realize, we are surrounded, and it hasn't even started yet. Then, on a street corner, someone recognizes you, not with a smile, with interest. A discreet man, low voice, unhurried. He doesn't threaten you with a knife. He threatens you with reality. He speaks like someone who has already decided that fate is sealed and all that's left is to choose who holds the pen. He says that the leaders want to avoid unrest. They want to get Jesus away from the crowd. They want to prevent the city from exploding. And then he offers the price. It's not just any number. It's a number that sticks in your mind because it's simple, round, and cold. 30 coins? 30. Not so little as to be an insult. Not so much as to seem like a king's reward. It's the perfect amount to become an excuse, to become, that's all, it was nothing. To become a trap. And when you imagine those coins, you feel a shock that frightens you. It's not just about money. It's about control. It's about ending the chaos as quickly as possible. It's about forcing the story to take a turn, even if it's through the worst possible door. It's about telling yourself that you're saving someone from something, even if it's saving the idea of the kingdom. By killing the man. Night hasn't even fallen yet, but you can already feel her weight coming down, because for the first time, you understand the true price of hope. Sometimes, hope comes at a cost, your soul, and the proposal hangs in the air, like smoke that can't be unseen. 30 coins. And the location. 30 coins. And that's the end. You are Judas. And the night of his life began before darkness fell. You don't start out as a traitor. You start out as the guy who solves problems. While others discuss parables, you count bread. While they talk about eternity, you calculate today. Because someone has to do the ugly part of the miracle, organizing the little. The bag stays with you, and at first it feels like an honor, trust, proof that you matter. You carry the coins, and with them, the feeling that you are holding the practical heart of the movement. Without food, nobody walks. Without shelter, nobody sleeps. Without the slightest bit of money, you'll just see another bunch of hungry people talking about heaven. But the scholarship also gives you something else. Behind-the-scenes view. You see how much it costs each day. You see how much comes in, almost nothing. You see how much goes out, always too much. You see the dependence, the fragility, the luck. And that's where the poison is born. When you live surrounded by need, the ideal becomes a luxury. You try not to let it harden you. You try to remember why you went in. You try to remember his voice, the way he looks at people as if they were more than just hunger. But every time you open the bag and feel the empty bottom, a phrase grows inside you. Faith doesn't fill the pot. You observe the other disciples. There's the impulsive one who wants action now. There's the quiet one who just trusts. There's the skeptic who needs to touch to believe. There's the idealist who doesn't even notice the price of things. And then there's you, the one who sees the cost. And the more you see, the more you begin to feel like you're carrying the group on your back. While Jesus seems to be walking in the opposite direction from what the world demands. He doesn't sell the message. He doesn't compromise. He doesn't strategize about power. He doesn't form alliances with powerful people. He talks about the kingdom as if it were inevitable, but acts as if he doesn't need to defeat anyone. This confuses you. Then it irritates you. Then it makes you dangerous. Because you start to think, what if he needs a push? Not a push of malice, a push of reality. A shock that forces destiny to reveal itself. You begin to convince yourself that if the situation gets tough, perhaps it will finally show its strength. Perhaps it will finally summon legions from heaven. Perhaps it will finally break the Roman yoke, as everyone secretly hopes. And then that scene happens that stays with you. A simple dinner, the smell of food, people relieved for a few hours, and suddenly someone pours an expensive perfume, really expensive, as if money were water. The aroma fills everything. The room becomes an altar, a gesture of love so exaggerated it seems wasteful. And you feel the snap inside your chest. You don't think about spirituality first. You think about mathematics. You think about how many days that would buy, how many meals, how many overnight stays, how many mouths to feed. You speak, you criticize, you point out the obvious, this could help the poor. And for a second you believe what you're saying. You really do, because there's a truth to it. You're living on the edge. Every penny counts. But Jesus is watching you. And his gaze isn't anger. It's not humiliation. It's worse. It's as if he sees you completely, as if he knew that mixed in with that beautiful indignation there's something else. Control, the desire to manage everything, the rush, the fear of losing, the dread that the dream will die due to a lack of logistics. He defends the gesture. He speaks of a short time, of farewell, of a now that will not return. And that's when something inside you breaks very slowly, because you realize he's not building a winning plan the way you imagined. He is walking towards an end and calling it purpose. You leave that house with the perfume still clinging to your clothes and a dry feeling in your mouth. The feeling that the world isn't going to change in the right way, that you're going to be crushed, and on top of that, they'll call it God's will. The bag swings on her shoulder, and each coin inside feels heavier than it should. You start asking yourself questions that embarrass you. What if I'm following a man who chose to lose? What if I sacrifice everything, and in the end, all that's left is pain? What if the kingdom is real, but not for now? What if enduring is the only strategy, and I can't endure it? And then that proposal comes back to haunt his mind like an animal. 30 coins, a value small enough to become an excuse and large enough to become a ticket. You start fantasizing about the perfect argument, the argument that absolves you, even before the sin. I'm not going to destroy Jesus. I'm going to force the moment. If he is who he says he is, nothing will happen. And if it happens, then he wanted it to happen. This is how you transform fear into logic. This is how you disguise cowardice as strategy. And without realizing it, you cross an invisible line, the line where you stop being a disciple and become the manager of your destiny. You are Judas. And the bag you carry no longer contains coins. It contains decisions. In the next chapter, the city will tighten even further, and you'll feel the trap closing in when you realize that everyone wants a miracle. But nobody wants to pay the price. Jerusalem will swallow you whole. The city is not just stone and narrow streets. It's a feverish organism. Too many people, too much faith, too much fear. The houses seem smaller with so much expectation crammed inside them. And above all, Rome. Always Rome. Soldiers on every corner, a living reminder of who decides the future. You walk with the group and feel the gaze of the crowds. Some look at you with hope, others with hunger, others with hatred. And you realize something that nobody says. When a people is desperate, any man becomes a symbol, and a symbol becomes a target. Jesus doesn't shy away from this. He speaks, and the city vibrates. He answers questions as one who isn't afraid to be wrong. He confronts religious leaders as one who doesn't fear human authority. And each of his words is like a spark falling into a powder keg. With your bag slung over your shoulder, all you can think is, this is going to explode. The other disciples try to cheer themselves up. Some think the big day is approaching, the triumphal entrance, the applause, the people shouting. Everything seems like a sign of coronation. You feel the adrenaline too. For a moment you believe it. For a moment you imagine, now it's going to happen. But then you look again. And he sees the soldiers' cold eyes. He sees the way the temple leaders whisper and walk away. He sees how everything seems too organized to be just a coincidence. You hear broken conversations. It can't turn into a revolt. It has to be quick. It has to be out of the public eye. And with each of those sentences, your hope turns to anxiety, because it's always the same. When those in power are afraid, they don't argue. They eliminate. And Jesus seems to know. He speaks as if he were saying goodbye. He uses words that sound like a final warning. He draws attention to small things, as if he wants everyone to remember the details. He speaks of suffering as if describing an inevitable path. And that irritates you in a dangerous way. You want a Messiah who will win, a leader who will break the yoke, a king who will raise up the people. You don't want a man walking serenely toward his own execution. And the more he accepts the idea of sacrifice, the more you feel that someone needs to do something, anything. You try to have a conversation. You try to test the waters. You drop comments about strategy, about security, about avoiding confrontation too early. You observe his reaction, looking for any sign that he's going to change the plan. But Jesus doesn't change. He answers you calmly. And his calmness humiliates you, because his calm demeanor seems to say, I know where this ends. And you hate feeling like you're not in control. Ultimately, that's it. It's not just faith. It's control. You start to feel angry at the people, too, because the people want a show. They want miracles in public squares. They want the fall of Rome in a snap. They want Jesus to do what they imagine. And if Jesus doesn't do it, the people will change sides in 2 minutes. The same crowd that shouts Hosanna also knows how to shout, Crucify him. You know this. You've seen the world turn like this before, so the numbers don't add up. If Jesus performs the final miracle, Rome will come with bloodshed. If Jesus doesn't do it, the people will turn against him. If you hide, they call you cowards. If you confront us, you'll die like rebels. And you, with 30 coins swirling around in your mind, begin to see a horrible and tempting third way. If the clash happens now, destiny is bound to reveal itself. You find yourself thinking of it as if it were a solution, as if it were a shortcut to the truth, as if putting Jesus against the wall were the way to finally prove who he is. You try to push the thought away, but it comes back stronger because it perfectly matches your fear. Fear of losing everything, fear of being wrong, fear of being just another naive person, and the worst part is that you find nice justifications. You say to yourself, if he is the Son of God, he will escape. If he is the Messiah, he wins. And if he doesn't escape, then maybe he never will. Look at the cruelty of this logic. You realize you're about to use someone's life as an experiment, as proof, as currency for certainty, and yet the city is getting crowded. Night falls, and the tension rises higher than the walls. You sense that something is about to happen, and that you're at the center of it, even against your will. So you decide to walk alone for a moment. You leave the group, turn down a street, and enter a less crowded area. And there, as if the world were waiting, you see those discreet men again. The same eyes, the same low voice, the same confidence of those who have already written the ending. They don't grab you, they don't threaten you, they only offer you a place in the machine. And the proposal now doesn't seem like a sin. It seems inevitable. You feel the weight of the bag on your shoulder. You feel the city watching you. You feel Rome breathing on your neck. And you understand the real question that lies before you. Will you be a spectator to the end? Or will you be the hand that pulls the trigger of the story? You are Judas. And the bill that doesn't balance is about to be paid in a way that no one will forget. You walk like you don't want to be seen, not because you're afraid of being caught by a common thief, but because you know that if someone recognizes you now, you'll never again be just another one in the group. The city is full, but the right streets are strangely empty. It's as if the very air knows that this isn't a stroll. It's a detour. You pass through shadows of old walls, through stone arches, through corridors where the light always seems too dim. The sound changes. The chaos of the street fades. The laughter disappears. The world becomes a whisper. And then you arrive. The place smells of oil, dust, and something else. Authority. Not the kind of authority that protects, the kind of authority that weighs heavily. The kind of authority that doesn't raise its voice because it doesn't need to. In here, decisions aren't made by shouting. They're made calmly and with purpose. They greet you without surprise. That gives you the creeps. Because for a moment, you realize you're not offering a new idea. You're just fitting into a piece that was already in place, as if the gears had been turning for days, and all that was missing was you to complete the circuit. You enter a room that seems to have been designed to erase consciousness. Little light, few windows, little air. It's as if the environment were saying, in here, nobody feels human. In here, everything becomes a transaction. The men are there, trained gazes, low voices, clean hands. One of them speaks bluntly. He doesn't call you brother. He doesn't call you friend. He addresses you as if you were a function. He asks directly, "What do you want?" And you feel the moment biting your tongue because you want to say, "I want the kingdom." You want to say, "I want to save my people." You want to say, "I don't want this to end in massacre." You want to say, "I want Jesus to stop walking toward death as if it were his destiny." But what comes out is simpler, uglier, more truthful. "I can deliver you to him, away from the crowd." The sentence falls to the ground like metal. You feel its weight even before the answer. Because when you say that, you cross a line from which there is no return. You cease to be a doubting disciple and become an instrument. And the worst part is, nobody is shocked. Nobody is surprised. They only ask the price, as if it were normal, as if their faith, their history, their days with Jesus, their nights sleeping on the floor, were just an item on a shelf. How much? They say it with the coldness of those who buy silence, and that's where the number that will stick with the world forever appears. 30 coins. You expect to feel anger. You expect to feel indignation. You expect to feel shame. But what you feel first is the opposite, relief, because the low number gives you a mental escape. It gives you an excuse. It gives you the most comfortable lie in the universe. It wasn't about money. You can even look at those coins and tell yourself they don't matter, that they're just symbolic, that you're not selling Jesus. You're just helping history happen. You say to yourself, with the conviction of someone who needs saving, if he is who he says he is, he will get out of this. If he wants this to happen, then I'm just complying. And if he escapes, it will be the final sign. And if he doesn't escape, then the truth needs to come out. You recognize the cruelty of this logic, but you swallow it because you're afraid of the void, afraid of having bet your whole life on it and being wrong, afraid of seeing it all end and being powerless to do anything about it. They bring the coins. The sound is subtle, but you hear it as if it were thunder, metal clashing against metal, life turning into accounting. The shine is cold. It's not the shine of hope. It's the shine of something that buys people. When they touch your hand, you feel something strange. It doesn't feel like a reward. It feels like tangible proof of what you've just become. And yet, you still get it. You keep it. The bag, which once carried bread and travel, now carries a sentence. They give you the instructions for the service. No yelling, no drama. We want him away from the people, at a discreet time, without commotion. And at that moment you understand the whole game. It's not just about arresting Jesus. It's about arresting him without turning him into a popular martyr. It's about killing him without igniting revolt. It's about erasing him without making a sound. The windowless room doesn't want justice. It wants silence. You nod in agreement. You hear yourself saying yes, and feel as if you're watching someone else speak with your mouth. When you go outside, the air feels different, as if the world were heavier, as if night had begun to fall even though the stars were still hidden. You touch the coins at the bottom of the bag and feel a metallic taste in your throat. You try to repeat the excuse to yourself, like a mantra. I'm just going to force the moment. I'm just going to prove it. I'm just going. I'm just going. But each repetition makes it weaker, because deep down, a part of you already knows the truth. You are not guiding destiny. You are being used by him. And now comes the cruelest part. You have to go back to the group as if nothing happened. You will find Jesus again. He speaks to someone, and for a second his gaze passes over you, quick, calm as always. But you feel like he stopped time just to run you through. You lower your eyes, and at that moment you understand the worst kind of prison. It's not the prison of Rome, nor the threat from the leaders. It's the prison of carrying a secret that transforms you from the inside while you pretend to be the same on the outside. You are Judas, and you've just signed a pact with a windowless room. You enter the room as if you were carrying an extra body inside. From the outside, you're just another disciple arriving to eat. A familiar face, a familiar place, a familiar ritual. The smell of bread, herbs, wine, everything should be comforting. It should be shelter. But today every detail seems like an accusation, because you didn't just come here hungry, you came with 30 coins. And the bag on her shoulder feels heavier than ever, as if the metal has learned to breathe. The supper begins with that fragile normalcy, the normalcy that exists only because no one dares to say what's in the air. You settle in. Quiet laughter. Comments about the journey, about the crowded city, about the tension. But the tension is no longer confined to Jerusalem. It's from you. Jesus moves around the room with a painful calmness. He speaks little at first, as if choosing his words carefully. And when you finally allow yourself to look at him properly, you feel something that dismantles you. He seems sad, not desperate, not confused. Sad in the way of someone who has already seen the end and, even so, still loves. And you think, he knows. You try to deny it. You try to say it's paranoia, guilt, your imagination, but your body won't obey. Your throat goes dry. Your fingers fidget, as if they want to open your purse and throw the coins on the floor just to catch their breath. And then comes the gesture that completely disarms you. Jesus gets up. He calmly takes off his cloak. He grabs a towel, a basin, and you don't understand at first. You don't understand why he's doing this now, right now, when everything seems about to fall apart. He kneels down. One by one, he goes about washing the disciples' feet. It's humiliating. It's intimate. It's absurd. It's a type of love that doesn't fit with the logic of the world. And when he gets close to you, your heart races as if you were running away from something, because you know what you're doing. And even so. He washes his feet. The water touches your skin, and you feel like it's fire in reverse, a burning cold. The towel dries your road-dirty fingers, and the guilt throbs even harder because guilt hates kindness. Guilt prefers punishment. Punishment is simple. Kindness is a labyrinth. You want to pull your foot back. You want to say no. You want to get up and run away. You want to confess. You want to break the story before it breaks you. But you do nothing. You just stay. And that's when you understand another horrible thing. You're not trapped just by fear. You are trapped by your own stubbornness in being right, by your own need to prove something, by pride disguised as strategy. Jesus returns to the place. The meal continues, and then, out of nowhere, he says the phrase that silences the room. One of you is going to betray me. Air turns to stone. You feel the blood drain from your face, your thoughts stumble, your body wants to betray you even before your mouth. And you notice the others shifting, looking at each other, wondering. They become uneasy, not because they distrust anyone specific, but because the idea is impossible. It's not me, right? One by one they ask, and that makes everything worse, because you watch men who love Jesus become terrified at the possibility of being the monster, while you already have the monster signed in the bottom of your bag. You try to stay neutral. You try to maintain a composure. You try to appear as just another face in the general panic. But inside you're screaming, "Why are you doing this now? Why are you talking as if it's already decided? Why don't you run away?" The entire room is crushing you without actually touching you. And then the question comes to your lips too, almost automatically, as if you wanted to hide behind the same phrase everyone else uses. You say quietly, "Could it be me?" And at that moment, time slows down, because Jesus is looking at you, not as a judge, not as an accuser, not as a politician. He looks at it as someone who knows its entire history, the good intentions, the cracks, the justifications, the fear, the haste, the pride. And his answer doesn't come as a shout. It comes as a whispered sentence, the kind of sentence that doesn't need to be loud to be definitive. You feel his yes more than you hear it. And the worst part is, there's no pleasure in it. There's no revenge. There's only pain. As if he were saying, I know, and yet I continue. You feel a tightness in your chest that feels like suffocation. You think about standing up and confessing right there. You think about returning the coins. You think about begging forgiveness in front of everyone. You think about abandoning your own plan. But then your mind pulls out the last defense, the last excuse, the last attempt to stay whole. Perhaps this is still the trigger he needs. Perhaps now he will reveal himself. Maybe at the last second. But Jesus doesn't give you the last second. He hands you a piece of bread, a small, ordinary gesture, but one laden with immense meaning. The bread in your hand feels like a materialized decision, and when you take it, you feel as if the whole world has recorded it. The room doesn't realize what happened between the two of you, but you do. Jesus leans slightly, and the words come low, cutting like a thin blade. Whatever you're going to do it now. This is not an order of complicity. It is the cruelest realization that exists. It's as if he's telling you you've already chosen, so don't pretend. You swallow hard. The bread barely goes down. The wine tastes like iron. You try to breathe and feel your throat tighten. You stand up. The chair scrapes the floor and the sound seems too loud. Some look on, confused. Others don't understand. No one knows they are witnessing the exact moment when a story becomes an eternal wound. You walk to the exit, and when you open the door, the night comes in like an animal, cold, silent, definitive. You take the first step outside and feel something horrible. It doesn't feel like you're leaving a room. It seems like you're becoming a different person from who you used to be. You are Judas, and now you will lead men with torches to the place where Jesus used to pray, the place where he lets his guard down, because he believes that, at least there, heaven listens. You squeeze the bag. Coins don't make a sound, and that's the worst sound of all. You walk through the night like someone dragging invisible chains. The city is dark, but it is not asleep. Jerusalem never sleeps when fear is awake. Somewhere doors are closing from the inside. Elsewhere soldiers laugh softly as if the dawn belonged to them. And you are the man who walks in front, not with a sword, with a dress. Behind you come the torches, come the coordinated footsteps, come the men who don't ask why, only where. You hear the crackling of the fire, the friction of metal, the sound of sandals on stone. It seems like a procession, and in a way it is, a procession towards the moment that will devour you for the rest of your life. You try to cling to the last lie that's keeping you standing. When they arrive, he will reveal himself. You repeat this as if it were a prayer, as if it were protection, as if it were an antidote against the guilt that tries to rise up your throat, because deep down, you still want to believe that you're not the villain, that you're just the trigger, that you're forcing the hand of fate so that the truth comes out. You guide the group through streets you know, like the lines on your palm. You pass through alleys. You climb small inclines. You leave the hustle and bustle and enter a vegetal silence where sound changes texture. The air becomes humid. It smells of leaves, earth, a cold night. Gethsemane, the garden where Jesus used to pray, the place where the city seems far away, where the soul seems closer. You know he comes here because this is where he lets his guard down. Not because he's weak, but because he's human, because amidst the crowd and the power, every man needs a corner where he doesn't have to perform courage, and you're bringing armed men to this place. With every step, your skin screams for you to turn back. Your head tries to calculate exits. I can invent a wrong path. I can say I didn't find it. I can delay. But then you remember what's already been done. You remember the windowless room. You remember the coins. You remember what you've already become in the invisible record of the world. You get closer and see the silhouettes. They are there. Some are dozing, exhausted. Others try to keep their eyes open, but the early morning weighs like a stone. And further away, you see Jesus. He's not giving a speech. He's not performing miracles. He's alone. His posture is different. It's not his usual calm. It's a calmness that seems like a struggle, as if each breath is carefully chosen, and you sense something that scares you. He doesn't seem surprised. It's as if he were waiting. This gives you such a strong reality check that it almost makes you stop. Because if he's waiting, then your excuse loses its power. If he already knows, then you're not forcing the moment. Or you're just playing the dirtiest role in the charade. The men behind you whisper, "Is that him?" You swallow hard. They need a signal. They can't afford to make a mistake in the confusion. They don't want to arrest the wrong man and turn the garden into a scandal. They want precision. They want efficiency. And here comes the part that will affect you more than the coins. The signal is a kiss. A gesture that should signify love, communion, respect, becomes an operating code. It becomes a delivery label. It becomes the kind of profanation that only exists when the human heart decides to sell itself and, even then, wants to appear human. You take a step, then another one. Jesus raises his eyes, and he sees you, not like someone who was deceived, like someone who was hurt. There's a split second when everything could be different, not because the world would allow it, but because you could simply collapse right there, fall to your knees, say, "I was wrong," yell at the men to go away, tear your own heart apart from the inside. But you don't fall apart. You bring your face closer and kisses. The kiss is brief, but it feels like it will last a lifetime. His skin is warm. Your face is cold. The contrast makes you nauseous. It's an intimate gesture used like a blade, and then, as if the world were just waiting for that microsecond, the torches advance. Hands grasp. Voices give orders. Metal approaches. The night, which seemed only silence, turns into movement. The disciples wake with a start. One of them screams. Another steps forward. One tries to react on impulse, and you hear a dry sound of confusion and shock, as if panic were an animal trapped in a small room. But Jesus doesn't turn to war. He does not call down fire from the sky. He does not explode the garden in light. He does not topple Rome with a single gesture. He just talks. And his voice, even under tension, has that authority that doesn't need shouting. He questions the absurdity, points out the hypocrisy, reminds us that everything could have been done in broad daylight, but it was done at night. And then comes the final blow to his lie. He turns himself in, not because he is weak, because he chooses to be. And that destroys you from the inside, because you realize with cruel clarity that your strategy won't produce the miracle you imagined. It will produce exactly what you tried to deny: imprisonment, humiliation, pain, and a silence that will haunt you. The men are taking Jesus away. The torches move away like a procession in reverse. One by one, the disciples retreat. Some flee, others stand paralyzed. And you remain there in the garden for a moment, as if the ground had turned to mud. You don't run with them. You don't cry with them. You are not taken with him. You are left behind. And that's a special kind of punishment, because now you're alone with your choice, with the smell of crushed leaves, with the echo of the kiss still on your lips, and with the weight of the 30 coins, which suddenly seem to scream inside your bag. You look into the darkness where Jesus has disappeared, and reality hits you with the force of a stone. You didn't buy a controller. You didn't buy certainty. You bought a moment that will never stop happening inside you. You are Judas. And when the last torch fades, all that remains is what no one can negotiate: the sound of your own conscience. Even after the torches go out, the night doesn't end. It only changes shape. You walk back aimlessly, as if the streets had lost their names. The sounds of the city arrive muffled, distant. But inside you, there's too much noise. You feel your bag hitting your hip with every step, and each hit sounds like a metallic laugh. You try to breathe, and you can't, because now the truth has nowhere left to hide. Jesus did not reveal himself in the way you invented. He did not explode the sky in light. He did not bring down Rome. He did not draw an invisible sword. He was taken away, and you stayed. The first thing you do is look for information, as if information could lessen the guilt. You blend into the shadows, lean against walls, listen to whispers, follow the flow of people who always appear when the smell of tragedy rises in the air. You want to believe there's still a way out. You want it to be just a scare. You want someone to say, at some point, it was a misunderstanding. But the city doesn't give you that. You discover that he is being interrogated, that accusations are being hurled like stones, that the leaders want haste, that Rome wants order, that the crowd is like a tide. It changes direction with the wind. And then comes the blow that hits you hard. You weren't the end. You were the beginning. Her delivery didn't end the chaos. It opened the door. You feel a chill on your fingers. You open the bag, just a little, as if you were opening your own wound. The coins are there, shining in the dark like animal eyes. And then your mind does what the human mind does when it can't handle reality. She tries to negotiate. You start to concoct desperate theories. Maybe they'll release him. Maybe Pilate won't accept him. Maybe there's a way. You cling to details, to small chances, like someone grasping a stick in the middle of a river. But the river is too strong. You watch from afar, too afraid to show yourself, too afraid to disappear. You see the machine moving. You see important people speaking in hushed tones. You see guards clearing a path. You see the tension turning into certainty. And with each passing minute, your chest tightens more, because you understand the worst part. The system doesn't need you right now. You have already fulfilled your role. You were helpful for a moment. And from there, the story continues without asking for your opinion. When the sentence begins to unfold, her body finally stops pretending. Remorse hits you like a fever. It's not beautiful sadness. It's disgust. It's panic. It's the feeling that you've entered a room with a door that locked itself. You try to remember his gaze at the Last Supper, the water washing your feet, the phrase, just do it. And now that phrase becomes a hammer. Because you did. And doing is heavier than thinking. You make a decision that seems simple, but it's actually a war against yourself. You're going to undo it. You run, not like a hero, like a desperate man. You go to where the leaders are, to where decisions are dressed in sanctity, but reek of control. You enter without asking permission, without etiquette, without a firm voice. You arrive as if bleeding inside, and you try to return the coins. You place them before them, as if it were possible to give back time, give back a gesture, give back a kiss. You say with your throat breaking, I was wrong. I betrayed innocent blood. Take it back. For a second, you hope the world will change, that someone will stand up, stop everything, and acknowledge the absurdity. That there will be humanity even in power. But the room only shows you the true face of the system. Indifference. They don't take their coins as if they were taking on guilt. They take them as if they were taking on discomfort. And the response is cruel precisely because it is practical. What does this have to do with us? That's your business. And there you understand a universal rule. Colder than Rome. When blame is applied, nobody wants to sign the receipt. You insist. You beg. You argue. You turn the man inside out, the man who just days ago thought he was controlling something. Now you're just a trembling body holding the truth in your hand. And they just push you out of your own despair. You emerge dazed, with the metal still burning. The coins, which once seemed few, now seem endless. You feel they weigh more than stones, not because of their monetary value, but because of their meaning. They are physical proof that you have become what you swore you would never become. And then comes the moment when you realize there is no undo button. You realize that's not how the world works. You can't distract someone. You can't unkiss the mark. You can't unassassinate the night. You are alone with the choice. You walk, and at some point, your body does the only thing it still seems to have some control over. You get rid of the coins. You throw them away like someone trying to tear a piece from their own chest. You're not throwing away money. You're throwing away the identity they've glued onto you. You're throwing away the title the world will forever give you, traitor. But throwing it away doesn't take it away from you, because the problem was never the metal. It was the right moment. The city continues. The people continue. The system continues. And then you realize the ultimate irony. You betrayed someone to force a revelation. And what was revealed in the end was you. You try to blend in again, but you can't. The streets seem too narrow. The sky seems low. The air feels heavy. You hear rumors, distant shouts, hurried footsteps. You know that outside, history is moving forward, and you can no longer look. Not because he doesn't want to see Jesus, but because he knows that if you look, you'll see the final version of his act. And this is where the full bill comes in. It's not God who punishes you first, and you. It's conscience. It's the inner mirror. It's the voice that won't be silenced saying, you knew. You try to remember your old dream, dignity, justice, change, and realize that everything has become a caricature. You wanted to save, and you became a blade. You wanted the kingdom, and you delivered the king. The world outside will proceed with its verdict. Your verdict internally has already been signed. You realize you've lost two things at once. You lost Jesus because you were the one who opened the door, and you lost yourself because now you can no longer go back to being the man you were before. And then, in the silence that remains, you feel a question that is worse than any accusation. At what exact moment did I become convinced that good intentions justified a horrible act? You mentally rewind as if your life has been rewound. You look again at the bag on your shoulder. You relive the hunger, the fear, the rush. You revisit the spilled perfume and your logical indignation. You see the crowded city again, Rome watching, your heart yearning for control. You see the room again without windows. You review the coins. You revisit the Lord's Supper. You see his gaze again. You relive the kiss, and finally you return to the first frame that changed everything. The first time you said it, to protect yourself. Just this once. The whole world of tragedy was born there, not because God willed it, not because Rome ordered it, but because, for a moment, you believed you could use good as an excuse for evil, and that it wouldn't have any consequences. But it did happen, and the interest is perpetual. Because in the end, it wasn't 30 coins that bought the night. It took 30 coins to buy the name that will be placed on you forever. And the final irony is the one that cuts the most. You wanted to be part of a story that would save your people, and he ended up becoming a walking warning of how a man can lose himself trying to fix the world by force. This brings the cycle to a close. And he leaves a question for the listener. What is your windowless room? What's your just this once? What price would you be willing to pay to feel like you're in control, even if it's just with your soul? This story is a narrative reconstruction, but the temptation is real. The temptation to justify the unjustifiable when fear grips us and dreams seem to die. And if this made you think, comment on what the most difficult moment was. The purse, the coins, the dinner, or the kiss. Because sometimes the difference between a disciple and a traitor isn't a grand scheme, it's a small choice made at the right time.